Welcome to the Fantasy NASCAR podcast. I am Race for the Prize. Let's go over some quick actionable notes to help us prepare for Richmond. We'll talk a little Richmond. We'll talk a little Phoenix 2024, give you some facts, some tidbits that might help you out through your process later this week. If you enjoy, like, subscribe, share. Also, check out racefortheprize.com to find out more about getting access to the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet. So let's get to it. Group A versus Group B. If you look closely at the screen, we're looking at the finishing position from last year's Richmond race. Now, you may not want to put a lot into or lost stock into Richmond last year, but I wouldn't completely throw it out. Yes, it's a new package. So you can lean more into Phoenix. It's up to you. You want to weigh Phoenix heavier? Sure. But I would not completely ignore any race. I am never one to just completely throw out data. So that being said, maybe you don't want to put too much stock behind this Richmond stuff, whatever. But here is a key point that you're going to want to look at this week. If you notice, the drivers that are finishing at the top, most of them were in Group B. And as we know, Group A typically runs on a cleaner racetrack. They lay down some pretty fast times, and they look great on the speed chart. But Group B, with a rubbered up racetrack that's going to be more resembling of the race, can build better notes. And that seems to be what the case was last year in the second Richmond race. You had a lot of guys that were super fast in practice, but they were all qualifying in Group A. And so some of their speeds in practice were skewed and very misleading. Look down here at the bottom. When we look at the bottom of Richmond, finishing position-wise, all of these guys were laying down some really good lap times. When it came time to race, they didn't have it. Whereas you look at the top 10, and 7 of our top 10 finishes, or 7 of the top 11, 8 of the top 11, all were in Group B. And notably, most of them had some poor times. So when I go into Richmond this week, and as it stands right now, we are looking at an A-B session unless NASCAR changes, which they can do. I think I might lean more into the Group B drivers. Now, you're going to know some outliers, but if we look closer at the outliers, the Group A guys, Buescher and Hamlin, had some pretty good long run speed. So one would believe if you do have a driver who shows long run speed in Group A, maybe you can trust that data more. And really, Hamlin's speeds aren't that bad. If we probably looked at all of his laps, his 5:10 lap average, he probably had a really bad lap initially, which really held back what his averages were 5:10 wise. But as he got deeper in the run, the average normalized pretty fast. Pretty good long run speed here from Buescher. I know it's Group A, but big time fast times. Was absolutely a monster beast in the race. Just drove straight through the field. Didn't qualify very well, but again, that was probably because Group A, Group B goes out to qualify, and it just doesn't work out for him. But the setup all in all was fine. He drives right through the field. Pretty amazing. All right, more actionable notes. Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick were really fast, but had terrible days on pit road. Something to look into, but also a trend that we have seen with 2311, unfortunately. Christopher Bell, a driver that has been strong at Richmond in the past, did not have a good race. Qualifies in the back, again, likely because he was fast, Group A, the track changed to Group B, you go out to qualify, and it doesn't hit. We have seen this before. So he qualifies in the back, starts making his way forward. We'll go ahead and throw this up on the screen, and then he gets hit with a penalty. So 29th, Christopher Bell chalk, and he is making his way forward. I love the chalk, and then speeding penalty, he gets buried, dirty air, game over for him. Brad Keselowski probably should have won this race. Could have won this race. We put the stats on the screen. Maybe it wasn't going to be the RFK Buescher, it was going to be the RFK Brad Keselowski show. As you can see, leading laps, deep into the race. And then he has a slow pit stop. And then he has another issue, I believe, later on, if I can zoom to it. And that's all she wrote. Logano also qualifies poorly. and grinds out a really solid finish. Let's see, was Logano in Group A as well? Let's go and look. Logano was Group B, but he had a poor qualifying session, but he just grinds his way forward. That's probably one of his better races of 2023. This may be a place where he can step up. Truex, bad start to the race, makes contact, falls back deep into the field, has to work his way out, then prefers to work out of it at Richmond by running long, which is something that we can see. It's just one of the interesting things about Richmond is you can pit once during a stage. You can even pit twice during a stage, which then spreads out fast laps. You can also run long. We've seen it all. And if any driver can run long, it's probably Truex, who is, for my money, maybe the best long run driver around at managing tires, finding speed. We've already seen that from him this season. Ends up with a good race. Stewart-Haas Racing had speed across the board. Stewart-Haas Racing, again, was pretty good at Phoenix early this year. So they should be definitely on a radar, especially if we continue to get a discount. We see Ryan Preece with a top 5 finish. That should impress. Eric Almirola with an 8th place finish, despite having a speeding penalty. Even Kevin Harvick, who had one here in the past, we know that there was a time there as, they were fading away. Stewart-Haas Racing was still putting together good short flat track races. And then that kind of disappeared a little bit. But it seems like Richmond has remained a staple for this organization. Even in 11th place, we again have Chase Briscoe, Stewart-Haas Racing, firmly on the board this week. Larson won the spring race. They come into the fall, and he was slow in practice. Now, the exception can be made about him being slow in practice because he was in Group B, so his times are going to be skewed. The track is much more rubbered up, but the reality was they struggled with the setup during the entire race. He was tight. I just never could get anything right. Just had no grip, a bad long day. The fact that he was able to salvage a top 20 may be impressive, but having Hendrick, and it wasn't really across the board, we'll talk more about that, but Phoenix really wasn't the greatest race for them. And Phoenix wasn't terrible, but clearly the Phoenix 2024 race, Toyota was faster. The Fords were faster. Chevys across the board at Phoenix, not good. Now that comes on the heels of a not so great Richmond race. Could be overthinking it. We want to see what happens in practice and what teams have learned from that first race, but those aren't good signs. We have good signs for Stewart-Haas Racing. We have positive signs for Toyota. Not a lot of positives at the moment for Chevy or for Hendrick, but that all could change quickly. Byron should have won the spring race. Got wrecked late in the July race. Again, he was fast. You look at these speeds, he's qualifying up front, but he gets into an incident on pit road, suffers damage, and is never able to recover. Again, he was a Group A guy, but the fact that he showed this long run speed, pretty impressive. You would have loved that, especially after what he showed in the spring, but that incident on pit road likely was too much damage and pretty much ruined his race. Michael McDowell was slow in practice, and that's real slow. But just the way it was. He was slow in practice. Could be skewed a little bit, but he really didn't have much going for him. RCR struggled in practice. Or did they? So again, this points to the Group B, Group A situation. You look at Austin Dillon. These are not good times. But it was a Group B time. Kyle Busch, oh man, looks like they don't have the car. And they struggle in practice. Or was it more of they just couldn't lay down fast lap times because this was Group B? We get into the race, they tune on him. Kyle Busch has a really good day on pit road and has a really good race. He finishes 3rd. Austin Dillon grabs a 9th place finish. Trackhouse struggled. Suarez lays down some pretty good fast times in practice, but it's skewed because it's Group A. Chastain is not in Group A. He's in Group B and actually puts down some decent times. But the thing that you have to remember, at this point in the season last year, Chastain was not very good. After that Nashville win in the summer, he just fell apart. He just could not produce. And it wasn't until very late in the season that Trackhouse got it back together, and then he wins at Phoenix. But this was definitely during that period where they were struggling week after week with setups and making adjustments. So let's talk a little bit about Phoenix 2024. And again, keeping it as actionable as possible, giving you information that you can use. The Toyotas were fast. Everyone agreed. There was a slight setup change that had to be made to get the balance right from last year's Phoenix race. The testers figured it out. Toyota figured it out. Across the board, people said the same thing. Toyota could complete passes. Some cars had speed, some cars were better than others, but it really was the Toyotas that were able to pass. So we have this new package, soft tire, laid down rubber at Phoenix. It probably is especially going to lay down rubber at Richmond, which is a much more abrasive track. And so at Phoenix, a second groove did open up, didn't necessarily create a lot of passing opportunities, but it opened up a little bit. And we should have a very similar situation at Richmond. It may not open the door for everyone, but it will open the door for some. As far as racing goes in this package, it's just too easy to drive the car. And they've tried to make changes, and they did make them a little bit more slidey. And they are getting a little looser, but it really hasn't changed much. And Hamlin says it over and over. Larson says it over and over. They're all saying the same thing. Give us more horsepower, because you have to get them out of the gas. Too much brake in this package, not enough power. It's just too easy to drive. It's too easy for inferior drivers and slightly weaker equipment to hold position, because mistakes are minimized in this package. It's very equalized. Here's an analogy. Imagine you're a 300 bowler and you're playing a kid, but the bumpers are on. You probably will still win, but it's not going to be fun for anyone. It's not going to produce good bowling. It's not going to be fun to watch. It's not going to be fun to participate in. In the end, it will probably work out, but that's kind of what we're doing. It's bumper bowling. The kid can make all kinds of mistakes and still hang in there. You probably don't care, right? Dude, we don't NASCAR coffee talk. This is not a call-in show with Superman sound effects. I try not to do rants anymore. I try to stick to actionable content. As much as some of you request the rants, the listeners still need actionable content. Well, how is package talk relevant to DFS? Well, first let's do a rant. One viewer got mad at a video I did 2 weeks ago. And it's fair enough. The guy had valid criticism, but rather than stop watching, he continued to watch every video after. All of them, and I could tell by the comments that he was watching them and watching basically all of the videos and then raging in the comment section. So that guy's probably gone. Well, actually, he's probably still here, but if I upset you, stop watching. I don't want to harm you. I don't want to outrage you. I don't want to make you mad. I don't want to anger you. But this guy just kept watching. Imagine ordering like a fish sandwich at McDonald's and you didn't like it. And then you continue to order it. Worse yet, every time you continue to order the fish sandwich you don't like, you yell and bark at the teenager behind the counter. I just don't get it. Yeah, I mean, the guy's like, I'm done with your channel. Well, I hope so, but he's probably not. He's probably still here. Give me back my fillet of fish. Give me my fish. I don't know. I should not say this stuff because I'm kidding, but the guy was a paid subscriber and his comments were valid. And one of the comments that he did make, he called, I called out poor research. You guys know that I did that. And then last week, my import feed failed and I pulled the wrong data and it took me several hours to fix it. And so, yeah, that was a mistake and I own that, but I wouldn't really say it's poor research. I've got a zillion data feeds coming in and one came in incorrectly and I didn't notice it immediately. I own that mistake. I get it. You guys are paying money. There shouldn't be errors. Your fillet of fish shouldn't be burned occasionally. But sometimes, guys, the fillet of fish ends up in the fryer too long. Not making excuses, owning the situation. And that's why I don't lock you in with a credit card. There's no thing that's going to bill you every month. If you don't like your fillet of fish, get out of here. It's fine. It's okay. I accept it. Don't keep coming back, though. I mean, I keep coming back and paying, I guess. I'm just a small town DFS guy, man. Making a few bucks help my family. I'm sorry. Actionable content. Shut up. Get back to it. All right, I hear you. So back to why the package talk is relevant for DraftKings. So before we got into the fish talk, the car's too easy to drive, or it's an easy to drive car. And by that being the case, it really increases the value of your mid-pack drivers. So at Richmond this week, mid-pack drivers, 6K drivers, they are better than they used to be. We need to adjust. We need to reframe. We need to accept this. The field is more even than ever. And I don't believe DraftKings will ever be able to perfectly price these drivers. They're not going to. They've got to spread the salaries throughout. And in reality, these 6K drivers in this package are not really 6K drivers. They're capable of top 10s. They are much more relevant than the price suggests. A 6K driver ain't what it used to be. Top 10s are on the table. Got to reset your framing when we start doing builds. The car's too easy to drive. It's too easy to hang on to the lead lap. It's too easy to compete. It's too hard for the quote-unquote dominators to dominate. That's why guys like Denny Ham said, we need more horsepower. I'm tired of racing with some of these bums. I should be better than them. They want that separation. And rightfully so. If Hamlin's a better driver, he should be allowed to prove it. If Larson's a better driver, he should have the equipment that allows him to exercise and demonstrate his talents. He doesn't want the bumpers on. He doesn't want to bump with the bumpers. Also, mid-pack drivers with confidence, mid-pack drivers that believe in their equipment, mid-pack drivers that believe they can compete because the car is too easy to drive. That confidence creates issues. They don't want to get lapped. And spring races are notorious for lack of deference. In the playoffs, all right, I'll let you buy here in the playoffs. Second Richmond race, the playoffs are coming up and I'm out of it. I don't want to rub you right the wrong way. I'm just good and goodbye. That ain't happening in spring races. They're much more feisty. And you can see that last year, race 2, green as can be, lean, mean, green bean, spring race. No, the lappers created problems. And the lappers are going to create problems again. That's what this package does. And you need to be aware of it. And you need to take note of it when you're making picks. So not only are we going to boost these value picks because they can compete more, but we're going to have to add volatility to the front of the pack. The guys at the front may not lead. We're going to get lead changes. Different things are going to happen and occur at the front because we've boosted that middle. You've got to hit reset on your brain. I mean, just look at last year's spring race. I'm not just talking anecdotally and like, well, I think that this is happening. Lap 196, spring race. Larson's leading, gets stuck behind Eric Jones. And wouldn't you know, by getting stuck behind Eric Jones, William Byron completes the pass, takes the lead. Lap 206, Harrison Burton trying to hang on to the lead lap. Holds up William Byron. And this allows Christopher Bell to pass William Byron in the spring race. I don't have any stories like that from the fall race or in July, but we do from the spring race. You think that's going to get better or worse? We're going to keep having mid-pack guys giving them headaches, and they should. They should. And you should be aware of that when you're trying to decide who's going to lead laps. It's not necessarily going to be the fastest car with the best track position. There is a lot of wacky stuff that happens at Richmond. On top of everything we mentioned, Richmond has high wear. It has different pit strategies. You can run long. You can stop twice. And then just green flag cycles in general are going to change leads. And different drivers are going to get out front. And then you're going to add a new package in. to that mix of variables. You heading into this race just assuming, well, the Toyotas are good at Phoenix, they're going to carry the day. That could probably be a mistake. That might be an error. They may continue to be good, but so many different things happen at Richmond that just hanging on the Toyota and brushing aside the Chevys and brushing aside Hendrick, it's not going to be all about speed. It's going to be about limiting mistakes. And it's going to be about getting strategy right. Fish rants and actionable content. That's what we're doing today. Because the good news is, well, we're not talking about fish anymore. After this weekend, you can go back to your Big Mac. Get your Big Mac on Friday. I'm more of a pizza Friday guy, but I'm pizza day guy. It's Friday's pizza day. That's the education background. Back to the actionable content. Race 2 was green, but there were plenty of pit road errors that took out good cars. It was just pits. You look at spring race, you look at fall race. I think if you look at Richmond in general, it's pit stops. So, you may want to watch your ownership. You might want to diversify your lineups if you can. Just Richmond in general is wacky. Even if you take out the penalties, which there were plenty of penalties in those races last year, fast pit times is going to result in lead changes. One of the things that you're going to do, actionable content here, is check out Bozzy. I can't remember Bozzy's last name. He's on Twitter. He writes an article every week where he goes through the best pit crews and looks at top times, median times. If we think pit road's going to be so important, and it will be, and it has been, and it always is, and especially at Richmond, then it would do yourself a favor to check out Bozzy's tweets and see, all right, which pit crews are running hot, because that's going to be the difference. It may not end up helping you pick the winner, but it's going to give you a better chance of picking the driver that's going to lead a bunch of laps and run a bunch of fast laps. No surprise, Denny Hamlin, one of the best on pit road, big time fantasy day last season. And then we throw in the fact that when we have cautions, and aside from good stops, bad stops, and penalties, some people stay out. Some people take 2 tires. That cycles in new leaders. Or it also results in really good cars getting blocked on restarts or really good cars getting wrecked. Everyone's on a different strategy. That means different tire wear, different speeds. It creates some hairy racing. On top of that, if you're looking at your screen, you also see that a lot, I imagine you are looking at your screen. I'm not looking at your screen sometimes. Fast laps get spread out because of different strategies, different sequencing. It's all over the board. This is Richmond. Wild times. Even if we look at the Richmond race where Buescher wasn't good, and can I pull it up? Yeah, I'll pull it up. Buescher struggled in I don't know if it was an issue he had in the spring race. I think it was more of him cutting it into 2s. 18.9 fast lap points for Chris Buescher. Average running position of 27th. It's going to be a fun one, folks. All right, a couple more tidbits as we wrap up here. And hopefully this was useful with some actionable content and a rant that will probably lose me more people. We'll put Richmond 2 practice back up. So Richmond had a test last year, just like Phoenix had a test last year for this new package. According to NASCAR's head engineer, whose name is, and you know it, Dr. Eric Jacuzzi, I thought visually it was very good. We were pretty happy with how that looked. Engineers probably want to look at numbers and data and not just like, that looks pretty good. I just get a little eye check, a little eye test. It looks good to me. Doesn't really surprise me from a guy named Dr. Jacuzzi. Well, what's the computer say? I don't know. I'll just watch it. It passes the eye test. So who participated in that test? Christopher Bell, Harrison Burton, William Byron, Justin Haley, Ryan Preece, and Noah Gregson. All worth taking note because, as we'll talk about in a second, the drivers that participated in the Phoenix test for this package performed pretty well at Phoenix. So Christopher Bell doing all the testing at Toyota because Denny Hamlin ain't testing. He's an old man. Martin Truex Jr. ain't testing. He's an old man. And so they turned the keys over to Bell. It worked out pretty well for him at Phoenix. I don't know if Burton's going to get much of a gain by getting that test in, but you never know. You want to boost him up because he got a little bit of Richmond track time. It's worth noting. William Byron, I believe this could be really good for Byron. Last year, should have won in the spring, had a good car, had the incident in the fall. Maybe this test is exactly what he needs. Justin Haley tested for Colleague. He's no longer with Colleague. I don't know how much that's going to help either of them. I do like the boost that's going to give to Ryan Preece, as we mentioned before. Richmond and even Phoenix were good tracks for SHR. Preece getting that data could help. And then the issue with Noah Gragson was he was testing a Chevy for Legacy Motor Club. And so now Legacy has Toyotas. Noah Gragson is no longer with the team. He's over at SHR, so that could be a boost for SHR. And his crew chief who was with him, Luke Lambert, is with Spire. So who knows how that's all going to shape up. But we can lean on possibly Preece, Byron, and Bell benefiting. Why? Well, before we get to that, we will note that Gragson said last spring, or was it? I didn't know it was August, I believe the test was. He didn't think it helped. So this is very early on, like, it was fine in clean air, but in traffic, I stunk, just like always. Same old package. So Phoenix test. Who participated? Ryan Blaney, Chris Buescher, Eric Jones, Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Corey LaJoie. So let's just pull up some Phoenix data. Get that Phoenix optimal lineup up here. Christopher Bell wins the race, scores the most fantasy points. He was in the test. Chris Buescher finishes second. He was in the test. Ryan Blaney finishes fifth. Sixth highest driver rating. He was in the test. Eric Jones does not get the result. But Eric Jones fired off really well. Now remember, this is the very beginning of Toyota for Legacy Motor Club. It was pretty impressive. And even Noah Gragson had a good day, finishing 12th. But if we look at the laps for Phoenix, real quick, for Eric Jones, ultimately it was a bad day. But if we look at his speeds, he fires off really well. He qualified really well. Now, did he fade some? Yes, but ultimately these are pretty good positions for Legacy Motor Club. But then he kept having trouble getting into dirty air. He had all those issues with Briscoe blocking him, wasn't getting the best restarts, car wasn't good in dirty air, and then he gets that wreck at the end. So as far as did testing help Eric Jones? Absolutely. Corey LaJoie was in this test, but Corey LaJoie wrecks. Kyle Larson was in this test. He was not very good, but he did have pit stop issues all day, was in dirty air all day. Of course, we want to expect more from Kyle Larson, but ultimately, I wouldn't say it was a complete failure. There's enough information there that says that overall Phoenix testers raced pretty well, which leads me to believe that the Richmond testers, like Christopher Bell, William Byron, Ryan Preece, I'll boost them up. Noah Gragson, despite all the changes, I'll boost him up. I might think for 3 more seconds on Harrison Burton this week. And Justin Haley's fine as a punt. And then I'm not really going to say I'm going to take him as a punt because he tested, though. Hopefully this is some positive, helpful, actionable content. If you liked it, well then show your liking by clicking the like. Subscribe, share. $10 for your Richmond week. Or maybe you just wait for next month and buy the package in. It's awesome. It's much appreciated. You can always tip Venmo, PayPal, Cash App more if you want. You do not have to. We hit a milestone this week. The channel is growing out of control. The idea of making a bunch of videos, it worked. And it's working. And so I will continue to do this and hopefully give you some tidbits, facts, notes, actionable content. We'll look at Phoenix a little bit closer later in the week. We'll look at the Xfinity series later in the week. Maybe we'll dive more into practice from Phoenix. You know the game. You know the routine. You know what my drive is. You know what my grind is. I will help you out as best as I can. I'm blessed to have you guys listening and viewing and clicking. And I love you guys. Trip to light. Fantastic.